One of the guests has said that they have their principal that's fully supporting any parent that would like to opt their children out, and that he's very against it. And they brought up a really good point that he's against it because it is taking 7 weeks for the test to be completed. So the computer labs are completely occupied with testing during that time. So anything else that you would use a computer lab, you lose 7 weeks for students being able to go in there and do any other type of computer work. I mean, that's a real concern. Like I said, the other superintendents in town are extremely concerned with the loss of classroom learning, because during that testing window you cannot introduce any new concepts because you have half of your class out or part of your class out. And so this has now increased a substantial amount of time that there's not any real genuine learning happening in the classroom, but everybody is dealing with this whole testing window.
Is there anything else there?
It says, do children in private schools have to take the SBAC as well? It's totally depending. In New York, a lot of the Catholic schools have chosen to participate with the Common Core, and they are taking, I believe, the PARCC test. So it totally depends on what the private schools. All of the charter schools here in town will be taking, if they take any type of state funding, will be taking the SBAC. Again, you'd have to check with your particular private school to see what they have decided. If they're doing anything with the Common Core standards, then most likely in Idaho they will be taking the SBAC test.
Now, homeschool students here in Idaho anyway do not have to take any sort of standardized test. So in that aspect, it does not affect homeschool students. The SAT and the ACT are both being reworked to fit with Common Core. So that is how it will later affect homeschool students, is through those tests.
Yeah, and somebody mentions that they're homeschooling next year. Will Common Core? Will Common Core be coming to homeschooling? I would tell you what I have found, as I have done part homeschool, is that it's very difficult to find curriculum anymore that is not Common Core aligned. And so I would say if you're planning on homeschooling, be very proactive this year about finding the curriculum that you want and investing in it, because a lot of it's just not going to be available as readily as it has been, because everybody is busily trying to align everything to Common Core. So we're going to lose some of these really good curriculums. And I know the IDEA, the Idaho Distance Education Academy, is where I have one of my daughters attending school, which is a kind of a homeschool program here in Idaho, that a lot of what I deemed valuable curriculum is gone now. I'm not able to use my funds to purchase it because some of the what I would say the best curriculum is not Common Core aligned, and so I'm no longer to use my state funds to purchase that. So it's definitely changing, and it's definitely going to affect homeschool one way or another. They intend it to.
And I had a thought just come to me. I will get up on the website. There are a couple of websites that are dedicated to homeschooling, and they list the curriculums that have not been adapted to Common Core. So I will try to get that up on the website here soon also.
The question is asked, is there any part of Common Core you do like? I was wondering so that we don't always come across as negative. I would say the general idea of having high standards, I am for. The actual Common Core standards themselves, if we went through them point by point by point and we found some that were better or are valuable or even are ranked among the highest in the nation, then we should keep those standards. The problem with Common Core is not one particular aspect of it, but the fact that it comes as a whole package. It's the standards that themselves that are not the highest in the nation. It's the testing, the SBAC testing that is psychometric and all of those different things. So you have to look at it as a whole package. So we are, if you want to be for something, we're for the highest standards in the nation. Let's get those. And we're for testing that makes sense, that empowers the teachers to be creative and have flexibility in their classroom. So we're we're for a lot of things more than we're against, but unfortunately we've got this huge Common Core disaster to get out of the way so that our teachers can be teachers again and our students can enjoy learning.
And you know, these might, even if these had been the best standards in the nation, I would still be against them because of the federal mandates and the federal strings that go with them, and including the testing consortium that goes along with that. That's one reason it's really important, actually, that you do opt your children out of the test, because if we can remove ourselves from this testing consortium, then we have removed ourselves from the enforcement arm of Common Core. So that's another reason that opting out of these tests is really important. Are there any more questions?
How can I find out when the tests are being administered? Most of the websites, like the Meridian School District, will list the testing window, and you can see the dates so that you can check, so that you can get in. But I would say this week and the next week, you really need to get in with your opt-out forms, because it's coming in the next. Some schools were starting in March. That has been delayed, but so most schools are going to be starting in April.
And I think it continues through the whole month of April. Are there any other questions, or are we?
I'm not seeing any other questions. Did I miss anybody's question? If you'd like, if you have a question you'd like us to answer, type in.
Well,
the question is asked, will this count as an absence when you pull them out during testing? If so, won't this negatively affect my kids? Yeah, if you pull your kids out during the testing window, it will count as an absence. But the issue that we have, so most people, that's why I'm saying if your last result would be to pull your kids out for the entire testing window, because schools do lose funding when you don't have when they don't have the attendance. So if it really comes down to a showdown with the school and your only option is pulling your kids out for 2 weeks, it's that they're going to have to choose. Do they want to lose the funding for that 2 weeks and those absences, or are they willing to compromise and allow you to opt out of the test? So it really is kind of the last resort showdown type.
yeah. Hopefully they will let you instead just opt out of the test and have your child. Many parents are talking about having their children take a book in to sit and read while the other students are spending hours testing.
One of the guests said, honestly, I'm a little scared to opt them out. Please help me conquer this fear. You know what? It's a common fear. And I have talked with many of my friends, and they all keep asking. It's really, unfortunately, we have kind of begun to look at ourselves as like the state has more power over us. Can we do this? Should we do this? You can and you should. We have those rights as citizens, and when something isn't right and they just keep telling us this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, how many of us as parents have been frustrated over the last few years of the way education is going? Do we feel like the teacher, that we still have input in the classrooms? How many of you now can have any input at all on where your child ends up and with what teachers? You know, I used to be able to go in and I would sit with my current teacher and we would talk about the strengths that my child had, and they would suggest which teacher they thought they would be best with, and we'd have a little discussion. That's all gone away, and it's all because of this testing. Because high stakes testing is so important, every class has to have an equal amount of basic, below basic, proficient, and advanced students, because it isn't fair for a teacher to get all of the proficient students and one teacher to be left with the below basics, because it affects their pay and it affects their school ranking. So it's no longer about what's best for the kids, it's about what's fair and equitable when they're trying to distribute out these teacher performance bonuses and everything else. And so it's worth it. It really is worth it to take a stand. And I know it's uncomfortable, and it isn't any more comfortable for me. In fact, a lot of what we've taken on in this last year has been very uncomfortable and not what I would choose to do, but I just feel so strongly. I have 5 children. I have one son that's graduated and the others are still all in school. I just feel so strongly that we're headed in the wrong direction, and we need to do something now to take back our role as parents in educating our kids.
Like Stacy mentioned, this is what we've been involved with in the last year has not been comfortable. But one of the things that has made it easier is a friend. So if you need to, grab somebody else to go in with you. There's strength in numbers. Find people who have the same ideas, the same plan as you, and gather up a group. Go together. Draw strength in numbers.
Let's see. Is the current opt-out movement the result of having no other options available when a parent is unable to homeschool? I think the opt-out movement is because the tests really are the enforcement arm of all of this. It's the, you will hear everybody say they did not like No Child Left Behind. Well, the whole Common Core movement, the whole new SBAC movement, the whole testing movement is just No Child Left Behind with a new name. It still has all the high stakes tests. It still has the annual yearly progress. All of those requirements are still there. Now, we got a waiver for some portions of No Child Left Behind as we are implementing SBAC, but those waivers are temporary. So all that's changing is the name of the tests and some of the teacher evaluation. Some of those things have changed slightly, but those provisions are all still there. So it's that same idea of high stakes tests where the state and the federal government ultimately is going to hold us responsible to meeting certain metrics. And so, yes, it's the opt-out, I think, is taking the enforcement arm of all of this away and giving the teachers some breathing room so that we can have innovation again, and the teachers can use common sense and say, this program really isn't working for this certain set of students. I'm going to change things up a bit and not be so tied to one set of curriculums because they're going to be held accountable to this SBAC test at the end of the year.
In fact, SBAC and Common Core has been called either No Child Left Behind in drag or on steroids. So it's very similar in nature.
And
what about K-12?
Oh, the K-12 as in K-12 is IDVA. Idaho Virtual Academy. And I've used Idaho Virtual Academy in the past and in fact went to a online forum that they had regarding Common Core. They love Common Core. They were right there with it from the very beginning, and some of the people that now work with them were sort of there at the beginning when Common Core was being developed. So you're not going to get any help from them. You can send in an opt-out form, and the thing with K-12 and IDVA is that it's a little easier to opt out of the test because you just don't show up. So they're going to tell you that you probably won't be able to re-enroll in the school next year. That's what we're hearing from a lot of parents. And so you're going to have to make some choices there. Once again, not easy, but it's what's got to be done.
Somebody made the comment that let's be honest, your organization should be named Idahoans Against Public Education. The only way I can respond to that is it's ridiculous. My son graduated from public education. I'm a product of public education. I am at this point doing a combination of public education and homeschooling with my kids. And for a lot of people that I know, homeschooling is not an option and private school is not an option. And so it's worth it to me to stay in the fight to improve the public education system. And so we're not at all against public education. We believe that it should stay close to home, that decision making should be on a local level so that from school to school, things can change if need be because of the situations of the students that are there. I think anything that's mandated farther away, the farther away you get, the worse the product is. And so we want to have more local control, and that's what we're advocating for. We want people to have options. If homeschooling works for you and it works for your family, that's great. If public school works for you and or private school, we want the public education to be the very best that it can be, and to be locally controlled so that common sense can reign again. Let's see. Will there be any meetings or rallies for the opt-out movement?
Well, there's been some talk of a rally. We're trying to put something together. It's not always easy, but you know, if people are interested, we will work on putting something together for sure. Okay, we have 5 more minutes for questions, so if you have anything, get it into us quickly. Also, I wanted to just quickly address the question before. I had all of my children in public education until Common Core. I'm not anti-public education. Like Stacy said, we just need to have the best, most local public education possible. And that's not what Common Core and what the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium do. They move those decisions further from home. Being a member of this testing consortium, we are one of, I think it's 19 states now. I can't remember for sure how many still belong to the testing consortium. We are one small vote in that. It's not close to home because you have to have a unanimous vote to change anything in this testing consortium. Let's get out of the testing consortium so we can bring public education back to a local level.
So somebody asked, are we going to see any results from the test at all? We will not see any results this year from the SBAC. And maybe in a year from now they will have some type of data. They're going to use it at the testing consortium to decide the cut score. So they're going to decide, you know, if kids score from this area to this area, they're going to be basic or they're going to be proficient. So that stuff is going to be decided from this pilot test. But no, we will not have any individual results. We won't know how our individual students did at all, and neither the teachers won't know. They won't know how their classroom did. There's not going to be any type of that of feedback. At least that is what that's the best information we have right now and what's available from the State Department of Education. Now, if that changes in the next few weeks, we'll let you know. But as of now, they are not receiving any type of that type of data back for the students.
Okay, do we have time for one more question? Is there one more question?
There's plenty of questions.
Okay.
Let's see. How much education will students be getting during the testing? That's the problem that's a huge problem that I have and also the superintendents have, is that they cannot do any genuine learning. You cannot move on in the subject while you have half of your class out. So it'll probably be busy work, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know how they answer it. I know that's why the superintendent said they are going to lose over 1 million, I believe it was 1 million hours a year in grades 3 through 11 with this new expanded window of testing. So it is a grave concern.
Okay, is there anything else there?
Are the schools allowed to assign grades for the test?
They can't if they don't get the data back. They're not even going to see any test items come back, so there will be nothing to grade.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. There is a requirement that for the 11th grade that they pass a certain test for graduation requirement. If the school comes back to you with that your kids, so I do have a junior this year, if that they are required to do the standardized testing to graduate, it does not affect this year because the SBAC is not going to provide any feedback at all. So what they're doing is also, if your kids, I believe from what I've read, that if your kids passed the ISAT last year, then they're going to use that information. If they were below basic or basic last year, then they will re-administer the ISAT this year for that 11th grade graduation requirement. But they are also going to be giving them the SBAC. So if your child's in 11th grade, they are going to need a lot. They'll be doing SBAC and ISAT if you don't opt them out.
Okay, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Just really quickly, we'll take one more question here in a minute, but you can find us at www.idahoans4localeducation.com, or we have 2 Facebook pages. One is Idahoans for Local Education, and the other one is Idahoans Against Common Core. If we didn't get to your question and you're dying to have it answered, you can contact us through Facebook or info@idahoansforlocaleducation.com, and we'll do our best to answer your question. Do we have one more?
Let's see. My son got a note home that kids will have to pass the SBAC in 2017 in order to graduate. That's probably correct because it will be replacing the ISAT. And so whatever requirements we had before that were ISAT related will now become SBAC related. So we'll see how that goes. The other concern with the SBAC, though, is that the SBAC does have all these hand-scored items. And so it becomes a question of whether, like Kentucky, can we afford to continue to hand-score those items? And can we get test results back in a manner that will tell us if a child passed the test to graduate? So these are all unknowns in the future that we'll have to deal with if we don't get something done legislatively in the next year. So go out and vote for people that care about local education and make sure that they really understand what that means and that they're willing to take the handcuffs off of teachers and let teachers teach.
Well, thank you for joining us. We're just a couple of moms who feel passionately about our children and our children's education, and we can't accomplish anything without your help. So please be willing to put yourself out there a little bit, to take a stand, and opt your children out of these tests. Right now, that is one of the best ways that you can help improve education in Idaho.
Thank you.